Black folks enough to inspire. We yelling democratic, we get the fire. This fight is passion in my eyes. I'm still let it. We should devise a real plan. Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is Intellectual Radio, and I am standing in for my brother Tyrone Muhammad, ExCons4Trump. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Let's get right to it. My brother Tyrone is not here tonight. My name is Carter Trust, and I am standing in for him. He will be back on Tuesday to talk to you guys about where he is tonight, and we're going to get into it. Let me just start by saying, listen, if you are homeless here in Chicago, y'all need to get yourselves together and head on down to City Hall and say to the mayor, if you all got room to put up migrants, you got room to put up the rest of us. They're down there at the Holiday Inn living it up, and you have a right to the same things that they are experiencing. So if you're homeless here in Chicago, head on down to City Hall and tell Mayor Johnson that Carter Trust sent you. Good evening, people. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the things that are happening here in the city of Chicago. You know, we are out here. We're supporting Trump. We're riding for Trump because we're sick of the Democrats. We're sick of being taken for granted. And yeah, I know some of you that listen to the station don't quite understand why we're switching over. But I don't understand why you're not switching over. I don't understand why people still think that it's okay for us as Black people to continue to follow the Democratic Party when the Democratic Party is doing absolutely nothing for us. You know, hey, listen, I know, people out there saying, well, we can't support Trump because he's racist. We can't support Trump because he didn't recant on what he said about the New York Five. But listen, people, this is so much bigger than that. It's so much bigger than just him being racist. This is bigger than the man. And I'd like to challenge people to look past who the person on the top of the ticket is. And I know that may be difficult for some of you because there are times when, believe you me, I'm side-eyeing Donald Trump too. But listen, I'm doing more side-eyeing to the Democratic Party right now because what they're doing to us is unacceptable. We have a vice president who won't submit a plan for what she's going to do to help Black people. And that may not be a problem for some of you, but it's a problem for me. Because, see, they have a plan for everybody else, and it's executed. Obama had a plan for LGBTQ. Obama had a plan for migrants, and they carried it through. There's also a plan for the Asian community, and it's been carried through. So why can't there be a plan for the Black community? We're the one community in this country that continue to suffer. We're the one community, actually, quiet as it kept, y'all, we really don't have communities in this country anymore. We have pockets that we're utilizing. We don't have full communities anymore. There's no community in this country right now that's a totally Black community. We don't have that anymore. So I can't even really say that. That's a problem. It's a problem for me. It's a problem for me that our schools are failing. It's a problem for me that we don't have programs in our schools that train our young Black men and boys to go out and to get jobs that they can do with their hands. Everybody's not college bound. That's a problem for me, and it should be a problem for you. It's a problem for me that we haven't seen anything from the Democratic Party since the Civil Rights Movement. That ain't a problem for y'all, because that's a problem for me. But as I said before, all politics are local. And because all politics are local, I'm going to have to talk about Mayor Brandon Johnson. I got to talk about him. And here's the thing. I say this all the time. I supported Mayor Johnson initially, not supporting him now. And you know what? I'm not the only one that's not supporting him now, because there's some things that this mayor has done that I have a problem with. There's some things that this mayor is doing that you should have a problem with. Let's start right now with what's fresh and on the table right now with the Chicago Board of Education. Let's talk about that budget. Let's talk about that loan that Mayor Johnson wants Pedro to okay. And that's the reason why he has Pedro or asking Pedro to step down. I don't care what the media says, y'all. It came from the top. It came from Brandon. It's all about him. And you know what? If you look at the loan and look at what it's going to cost the city, it's like taking another payday loan. And he's right to turn it down. Even the governor said he was right to turn it down. And I ain't a fan of his either. But let's talk about it though. And see what needs to happen, people, is I want you guys to really take a look at that budget that Chicago Public Schools, well, I digress, that the Chicago Teachers Union is forcing down the throats of the Board of Education. Y'all need to open that budget up and y'all need to look at some of the line items that's in it. You know, as a substitute teacher, I'm all for teachers getting paid because they deserve every single dime. Because these kids that we're teaching now are different. They're different. And you need to be paid your worth if you're in a classroom. So I wouldn't dare take anything away from that. But see, there's some other things in that budget that we need to be paying attention to, like that community schools agenda that's being pushed. Now, there's a line item in a budget for $500,000 set aside for community school programs. Well, there are some programs that are running right now that are running for under $50,000. So why should the Board of Education be asking us to spend $500,000 and then to give those programs to schools, or, I'm sorry, to organizations that the Chicago Teachers Union supports? It's not okay. Then there's that other line item, and this one should really float your fancy. There's that $2,000 stipend that they want to give to migrant children only. Not all underprivileged or underserved children in Chicago, just migrant students. Y'all okay with that? Or is it just that y'all don't know that that's what's in the budget? See, it's things like that that we got to be paying attention to. And here's the thing. We should all know that the mayor is going to try to find that money somewhere. He didn't get that millionaire's tax that he was so dependent on because we shot that down. And the same way we shot that down, people, we got to stand up and shoot this budget down. We got to say to the mayor, we got to say to CTU, nah, y'all, this ain't how we doing this. You're not going to bankrupt the city on the backs of the people to support the migrants. I'm sorry. And you know, let me just say this, because I don't want to demonize the migrants who have come to this city because they had an open invitation. So this isn't their fault. But what I will say is that at some point we got to say enough is enough. Now I'm going to move on from that. Let's talk about the shot spotter. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the fact that it was good enough for the DNC, but it ain't good enough for the citizens of Chicago. Because, see, if it's something that does not work, regardless of what it cost, if it didn't work, why did we need to keep it through the Democratic National Convention and then now it's not necessary? Make that make sense to me, people. I'm just talking about what I'm talking about. Y'all make it make sense. I want to hear from you guys tonight. We're at 708-223-8953. This is Intellectual Radio, and I am standing in for my brother Tyrone Muhammad. My name is Kyda Trust. Come on in, come on in, come on in, Chicago. I want to hear y'all thoughts. What y'all think about this? Because, see, it's some things that's happening around this city that ain't looking good to me. And I want us to really, really start paying attention to some of the initiatives that are not only being pushed by the Biden and Kamala Harris administration, but also the things that are being put forth within the city of Chicago. I want us to start paying attention because, like we always say, you hear Brother Tyrone say all the time, all politics are local. So we need to be looking at our local officials. We need to be looking at some of these aldermen. We need to be looking at some of the state representatives. And then I'm just, like I said, I'm going to go on into now. Let's talk about these school board elections. You're beginning to hear more about the school board elections. But what you don't know, and what you probably will not hear about, is the fact that there were many candidates that put in applications to run for school board office. Right now, though, the only 10 that you have are the 10 that have been supported and pushed by Chicago Teachers Union. The reason for that is because the other people who submitted applications to be on the ballot went out, got their signatures, and what they did know, because these are regular people who have never run for office, they just want to support their children. They just want to have a voice in what is happening around the city. So they got out, they got their 1,000+ signatures, they submitted their names, and then attorneys came in and knocked these people off the ballots. So think about this. And so, I went in front of my state senator, who is the Senate floor leader, Senator Don Harmon. And yeah, see, I call names. Most people will say that man or those people. I'm calling names. And I sat in front of him when there was initiative on the table about these ballots and about the signatures that they were asking regular people to come up with. And y'all just keep in mind that we have congressmen who don't have to have 1,000 signatures to get on the ballot. So why would you be asking regular, everyday working parents who are trying to do what's best for their children to have more signatures than your state representative, your alderman, or your congressman? It was wrong from there. And I sat in front of Don Harmon and I asked him, I said, in what way is this okay? And his response to me was, well, you know what? Don't worry about it, because in 2026, you'll get a chance to do it all over again. As if that made it okay. And my thing to him was, well, let me ask you this. He lives in Oak Park. Would you propose what you're proposing for Chicago for the citizens of Oak Park? He didn't have an answer for that. And of course, the measure passed. And so now we have our parents out here struggling trying to get signatures. Well, most of the parents got their signatures, but they were knocked off the ballot. And it's really a serious disenfranchisement to the parents, to our students, and to the city of Chicago. And let me tell you why. Because now you have the 10 members that are left on the ballot that are supported by CTU, or Chicago Teachers Union, and then the mayor gets to appoint the other 11 members. So for the mayor, it's a win-win. But for the parents, for the students, and for Chicago Public Schools, it's a lose-lose. There's no autonomy there. Our voices are not going to be heard. The voices of the parents are not going to be heard. And the voices of our children aren't going to matter, because they're in control. And right now, they're the rabbit with the gun. But one of the things that Brother Tyrone and I are trying to do here in the city of Chicago is really let people know what's happening. Let people know that these people are out here working for us. They don't give a darn about us. And we need to start showing them that we don't give a darn about them. So I'm out here, I'm stumping, I'm knocking on doors. And let me just say, I'm not going to say that the Republican Party has done everything right by us, because they haven't. But what I do know is the Democratic Party here in the city of Chicago are coming up short. And we're definitely getting the low end of the poll here. And as Black people, that has to not be all right with us. And I want you all to remember these days when it's election times. Because see, and let me just say this too. They depend on us not remembering. They depend on us not paying attention. They depend on us coming back and saying, oh, well, you know what? They did kind of mess up, but that's the name I know. So I'm going to go back in the polls and I'm going to vote for them again. We got to stop doing that, y'all. We got to stop. Every single elected official that is sitting in city council right now, we need to be rethinking them right now. There are a few that's trying to do the right thing, but for the most part, the rest of them just rolling with whatever. And it ain't about the constituents and it ain't about the people. I don't know what it's about, but it ain't about us. And listen, those young people out there, young people who are coming up, this is your time. It's time for us to stand up and it's time for us to support other people. It's time for us to support some of our younger candidates. And let me just say this too, because you know, in the Black community, we tend to vote ethnicity. Y'all, it's a sin and a shame to say, but we might have to stop doing that because the Black folks that are sitting in office right now don't seem to give a darn about us. And we're going to have to really start thinking about who we vote for. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. And they're showing us that. Every time you go to City Hall and you hear the people stand up and say, we don't want sanctuary cities anymore. We want you to put a halt on it. And the mayor and the city council stand there and they tell us, well, we hear you and we understand, but we're going to vote this way. Well, people, they're voting the way that they want to vote. And we need to start voting the way that we have to vote. It's time out for letting stuff slide because they look like us. There's a song out right now by Kendrick Lamar, and it says, they ain't like us. People, they look like us, but they ain't like us. They ain't like us. And we need to stop voting on these people that ain't like us. We need to stop voting on people just because they look like us. Start paying attention to what's going on in the Senate. We need to start reading these House bills. And I'm not talking about what's on the leaderboard, but I'm talking about getting into the meat of it. Because, see, a lot of times it's that fine print where the stuff that really screws us in some of these bills are. It's in that fine print. It's in the inside of the bill, not the title of the bill. So we got to start paying attention. We got to start going to these meetings and looking at who votes on what. And let me just say this, people. A no vote is a yes vote. So even if you don't show up to City Hall, even if you don't show up down in Springfield to vote, you might as well have just voted yes for a measure that votes against your people. Because if you're not there to vote, that's a yes for the other side. And let me just say this. Even here in the city of Chicago or locally, statewide, countrywide, when we don't show up at the polls to vote, that's like voting for the other team. So we got to stop not showing up. And yes, I am supporting the Republican ticket. And I'm supporting the Republican ticket because I can't continue to let the Democrats play in my face. And you can't continue to let the Democrats play in your face. Now, one of the things that does have to happen, Black people, and I'm speaking to Black people now because I'm a Black person, not to take anything away from other people in this country, because everybody here needs to be fighting for something. But I'm speaking specifically to Black people. We got to get an agenda, y'all. We got to sit down. We got to roll up our sleeves and we got to decide what is going to be best for us, what is going to be best for our communities, what is going to grow our communities, and what is going to bring us out of this constant state of poverty that we find ourselves in. Listen, the cavalry ain't coming to save us. There's nobody sitting in the office saying, how can we change the plight of Black people? That ain't happening. So we have to do that ourselves. And once we do that, then we're able to take an agenda back to our elected officials and say, hey, listen, this is what we need in our community. And if you're not going to give us these things that we need, and at the top of the list, we need our own communities. We need communities that are self-sustaining with our own businesses, with our own banks. We need things in our community that are run by people who look like us. And again, I'm not trying to take anything away from the other people who are coming in and to try to make a living for themselves. This ain't about y'all. This is about us. This is about what we need to become self-sufficient. This is about what we need to educate our children. This is about what we need to have better educators, better teachers, better jobs, better businesses, better services, to be able to maintain our homes and our properties in our community. This is about what we need. And at the top of that list is reparations. Yes, reparations. I know people don't want to hear about reparations, but America owes us. And listen, if Kamala Harris ain't talking about reparations, if Donald Trump ain't talking about reparations, then we got a problem because we deserve it. Our community deserves it. Affirmative action is, for all practical purposes, null and void right now. And even when we had it, there was limits to that. So again, I say, this country owes us. And let me say something else to you, Black people. We tend to walk around and feel like this is not really our country. And you'll hear people say to us, oh, well, if they don't like it, they could go back to Africa. I ain't from Africa. My ancestors weren't from Africa. Most of our ancestors were from here. This is as much our country as it is anybody else's. So we got to lose that attitude of having people to make us feel like this isn't our land and this isn't our country, because it is. And we need to start doing a better job of fighting for it. We got to get up off our heinies and get involved in making things better for the all of us, not the some of us. There's no more little I's and big U's in developing our neighborhoods and our communities. It is going to take a collective effort, and we have to do it together. So I challenge you to remember these words when you go to the polls. Early voting is getting ready to begin. And I want you to think about what you heard here today. I want you to think about what's happening around you. I want you to think about what's happening in this country. And then I want you to vote accordingly. And I'm not telling anybody how to vote. I'm just telling you what kind of trust is going to do. But what I will say is that we better spend some time thinking long and hard about our vote, because we don't realize the value of our vote, but everybody else does. That's why right now you see candidates pandering to us. But let me just say something. And all of the pandering that we've seen these last couple of months and that we'll see these last couple of weeks, you know what I'm bothered by most? Is the Black man. Nobody's talking to the Black man. Nobody's talking about the Black man. Nobody is thinking about how to make life better for Black men and boys in this country. I don't hear conversations about how to stop the prison pipeline that we see in our community. I don't hear anybody talking about the fact that, and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago on this show, that in 2020, and this is the city of Chicago alone, but I want you to think about what this number looks like globally. In Chicago in 2020, we lost 120 Black men and boys between the ages of 14 and 25. Now, you think about that number per month. Think about what that number looks like at the end of a year. And now that we're close to the end of 4 years, what does that number look like? And that's just for the city of Chicago. We're not talking about other major cities where the numbers are even more staggering. People, it's a form of genocide. Our boys, our men don't even understand what they're doing because we're not talking about it. The government isn't talking about it. Our politicians aren't talking about it. The people who want to get elected for president, they're not talking about it. One of the reasons that they're not talking about it is because we're not talking about it. We're not asking people to be accountable, people who should be accountable. We're not asking them to be accountable. We're not asking them about the plight of Black men and boys. We're not talking about the record unemployment that Black men and boys are facing in our community. We're not talking about the fact that this city, and I'm going to talk about this city because this is the city that I live in, has had several job fairs for migrant. Where are the job fairs for Black men and boys? Where are the job fairs where they can walk in and get hired on the spot? Where are the job fairs for non-Spanish speaking people? Where they at, y'all? Where they at? Let's have some real conversations. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's not happening in our communities. Let's talk about what needs to be happening. Let's talk about growth. Let's talk about education. Let's talk about job readiness. Let's talk about job training programs. Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about counselor education. Yeah, real topics. Let's talk about that. You know, and you know, I got to go back to this because I can't talk about the plight of the Black man and boy without talking about what the crime bill did to our community and what the war on drugs did to our communities. Can't not talk about the fact that crack cocaine was dropped off in Black communities. Yeah. We got to talk about it, people. We got to talk about it. And so when people say that Black people have every opportunity to make it, people are not talking about the generational curses that have been inflicted on us by the powers that be. No, we're not talking about that. They're not talking about that. But you know what? We can't expect them to because we're not. We drive down our streets and we talk about what a shame it is, and we bump our music to men calling our women names and talking about all the things that they're doing that brings discouragement and wrath upon our community. Oh yeah, we're not talking about those things. We're not talking about the impact the games have on our children. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about the impact that YouTube and TikTok is having on our children. And I'm not condoning censorship, parents that are listening, but I am saying you got to pay more attention to what your children are exposed to. Remember, it matters what you impart into a child's mind because input determines output. And if you're putting junk in, expect to get junk out. That's just how it goes. It's just like with the music industry, with television. Everything that we see now is basically junk. And we're sitting there and we're watching our kids be exposed to these things. And then we're wondering why their mindsets are the way they are. We're wondering why we're seeing some of the things that we're seeing in the streets. Is because of what is being inputted into the minds of the people of our community. And so at what point do we turn the TVs off? At what point do we take away those iPads and those tablets and really start paying attention to what our children are exposed to? I know I've talked enough, so I'm ready to take some calls. I know y'all got some things to say, so call on in and talk to me. I want to hear from you. Again, the number is 708-223-8953. This is Intellectual Radio. My name is Kyda Trust, and I'm standing in for my brother Tyrone Mohammed. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back.
Once there was a boy and girl. Boy said, I love you so. Girl said, I'll never leave you. They grew older and left each other, 'cause that's the way love goes. That's the way love goes. And there's a time, seems like you'll never find someone willing to love you. Keep on looking, you soon discover a mighty love will sometimes make you weep and moan. A mighty love, you sit all day by the telephone, 'cause you're all alone. You need a mighty love. Some say that you're sure to find true love and peace of mind at the end of a rainbow. There's no sign in the sky to follow, 'cause that's the way love goes. Baby, that's the way love goes. And so there's a rhyme that says life will soon be fine.
All right.
Guess what you made?
Intellectual Radio. We're back. I had to take a little water break, but I am welcoming your calls. Our number again is 708-223-8953. This is Intellectual Radio, ExCons4Trump, and I am standing in for Brother Tyrone Mohammed. I am honored to be here. I thank my brother for allowing me to get in and just talk to the people about some of the issues that are going on in and around Chicago and really around this country, because every urban community within this country is really experiencing the same things. So it's not just the city of Chicago. I'm talking to everybody. And listen, people, we got to get involved. We got to start standing up. We got to start speaking out. You know, we stand around and we wave the white flag, waiting on somebody to come and save us. Ain't nobody coming. So we gonna have to wake up and get it together. And I understand that Mayor Johnson actually listens in to some of these radio stations and listen to some of the commentary just to kind of see what people are saying. So I'm gonna say to you, Mayor Johnson, brother, listen. Your name is the name on that marquee, not Stacey Gates Davis, not Jackson Potter. That's your name on the marquee. And right now, your approval rating is at 27%, the lowest of any mayor in Chicago history. And what that means, Mayor Johnson, is not just is Carter Trust unhappy, but Chicago is unhappy. And you know, we talk a lot about legacies and leaving legacies, not just leaving legacies for the Black community, but leaving legacies for your children. So I need you to think about that when you're pushing this agenda that you're pushing, this agenda that doesn't seem to be beneficial to your people. You love to talk to us about how you're a Black man. I'm finding that a little hard to believe with what I'm seeing. So if you're really a Black man and you're down for the Black people like you say, I believe you when you say you down for us. So I need you, brother, to show it. Because right now, I hear your mouth, but I see your actions, and they ain't lining up. So I'm going to need you to go back to the drawing board, sit down with your people, and you're going to have to work some stuff out. Because right now, your people are hurting here in this city. We still have a very high number of homeless individuals who would love to have a room at the Holiday Inn. When is the last time you drove past and stopped by to see what's happening over there? Not sent your people. When is the last time you went? When is the last time you picked up the phone to talk to the people who got you elected and asked them, hey, what can I do to change the tide or to turn the tide? I get it. You got people up there sitting next to you telling you that we don't matter. Well, let me tell you this, Mayor Johnson. Some people's voices might not matter. But this voice right here, this is a voice that people are listening to. They're listening to my voice. And my voice does matter. And so I don't know if you're planning on running for re-election, but if you are, I don't think you'll get elected, but if you are, and you plan to get the support of the people that you had initially, I'm going to need you to circle back, brother. You're going to have to circle back. You're going to have to come back to the neighborhood. You got to come back to Austin. You got to go back to Inglewood. And not just for a photo op. You got to go and sit down and talk to the people. You got to have some town halls. Ask the people what's going on. Ask the people what they want. Ask the people what they need. Ask the people what they'd like to see you do. Those are the things that matter, brother. I'm just talking about what I'm talking about. But you're going to have to come around. Because, see, ministers aren't the only people that vote here in this city. Senior citizens are not the only people who vote in this city. You know, yeah, I know y'all go over there and y'all get them turkeys and y'all give them a ham for Christmas and, you know, you get them to sign their names. And, you know, I've heard some little tricks that go on that some of the folks out there doing. Yeah, we know about it. We ain't going to call you on it, but we know it happens. But see, those ain't the only people that vote. So you better wake up. Right now, it look like you sleep at the wheel. And you got somebody else driving. And they driving you into a ditch, brother. So you better come alive. We ain't playing. We not playing. We not playing with the Democratic Party. And we ain't playing with you. So you're going to have to get yourself together. And you ain't the only one that I have some issues with. Don Harmon, I got some problems with you. Yeah, I do. Real problems. Like I said, this school board mess, and it's a mess. We're not happy. I know you all think that a lot of people don't know what's happening, but that's my job. My job is to let people know what's happening. You know, my job is to, you know, say to Senator Kimberly Lightford, even though you made that statement down there that we came down there with an agenda. Well, you know what? You were kind of right about that. We did have an agenda. Our agenda was fairness for the citizens of Chicago. Our agenda was fairness for the people who wanted to run for school board here in the city of Chicago. Yeah, we had an agenda. It was that. Nothing more and nothing less. And usually, whenever Carter Trust come out and fight for something, you know, I sit in my own little corner, my own little silo, and I generally don't bother anybody until you bother my people. When you bother my people, you do something that affects my people, then I'm going to climb out of my little hole and I'm going to come and tell you about yourself. That's just how I roll. A lot of times people don't like to hear the truth. They don't like to hear honesty. They don't even like to hear when people are unhappy. But I am one who believes that my elected officials work for me. And so when you make me unhappy or you vote on something that is not going to be beneficial to my people, or you push an agenda that is not going to be beneficial to my people, you're going to hear from me. So if you all want me to crawl back under that rock and be quiet, then I'm going to need you to fix some things. I'm going to need you to come see about the people that you seem to be leaving behind. I need you to fix some stuff. I need you to be about the homeless Black people in this city. I need you to be about the unemployed Black people in this city. I need you to be about the mentally challenged in this city. I need you to look over and see about the substance abusers here in this city who might want to get help. That's what I need you to be about. The business of the people, not just the people in the fancy cars with the fancy jobs, the people. You out here pushing this budget. We have a very large budget deficit. And as much as you like to say to the people, we're going to do all that we can not to raise property taxes. There's no way for you to balance this budget without raising property taxes. So if that's what's going to happen, then I need you to put some mechanisms in place so that people who are in their homes can keep their homes, and that people who are trying to realize the American dream, who have been in America since the beginning of time, can actually experience that. Caller, good evening.
How you doing, Carter?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. This is Miko.
Hey, girl, what's going on?
Nothing much. So I hear you talking about property taxes.
Yes, ma'am.
So from my understanding, becoming the first of the year, they have every intentions on going through the city of Chicago and violating properties for building violations because they need money. So that means you have a bunch of Black property owners that's pretty much struggling, that don't have the money to pretty much bring their buildings up to code, their properties up to code that they own, because they're struggling already because their businesses is not getting pretty much business like they would normally get, during the Trump era. And, so basically our people are being left out every which way that you can think of, if we're not a part of, what I'm saying, the rooting squad for the BS that they're putting upon us. So what are those people, especially the elderly, the mom and pop shops, that's going to do when they pretty much come out and violate, give their property building code violations, and then you got to go down to the city of Chicago and get permits, and you got to pay all these high prices for the contractors to come in to fix your building code violations. I don't see anybody doing any preparation about funding to help Black property owners, so that live in their properties in the city of Chicago. What's up with that? Are they trying to pretty much figure out another mechanism to pretty much take properties so they can give them to somebody else like they doing in the Cook County Land Bank?
Well, you know what, Tamiko, I'm glad you called and mentioned that. And see, these are the kinds of conversations that we have to be having, because most people don't know that. And most people, unless you've been involved in building court, don't know that once your property goes to building court, it is hard as heck to get it out. Most people don't know that some of the things that they ask you to do are almost unrealistic. And most of our people don't have the money to do that. And so I'm glad that we're talking about this, because see, when we talk about the things that we need in our community, these are the kinds of things that we have to be going to our elected officials, that we have to be saying to those people who are running for governor, running for senator, and running for president, that we need some set-asides in our community that's specifically for Black property owners, to help us to keep and maintain our property in this climate that we're in. Absolutely. And I'm glad that you're talking about that. I'm glad that we're having these kinds of conversations, because those are the kind of things that we need to be fighting for. And I say, Mayor Johnson, I know how you like to be on the outskirts, listening in, but not really coming out and saying anything. But again, these are the kinds of things that we're talking about. What kind of mechanisms are going to be put in place to help Black property owners maintain their properties? As I said before, we got all kinds of set aside and all kind of budget deficits that we are enacting in order to support the migrants, newcomers, people from somewhere else. What in the world are we going to do to support the people who are already here?
And next week we're gonna talk about Chicago Housing Authority, okay?
Let's. Hey, look, we can talk about it now. Again, baby, that's another place where the smoke is burning and haven't quite caught fire yet, but the fire's raging. Let's talk about it.
Oh, honey, they are putting people out of their, they snatching their Section 8 vouchers away from them unjustly. There's no audits being done to see, hey, you violating these tenants. Are you justified in doing that when you're taking the subsidy away from them that has the roof over their head? You know, Section 8 really has no regulations around it. That's why they can't put the migrants in public housing, but they can put them up under vouchers. Because vouchers, Section 8 vouchers, aka housing choice vouchers, don't have all those regulations around it, right? And see, a lot of people don't know that a lot of Chicago Housing Authority property has went red. Red is another form of Section 8 for public housing, aka basically privatizing it, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
For a family to get a voucher, you have to take a voucher away from a family. And a lot of Black families have lost vouchers. They use the PPP to take vouchers away from them, but they're not saying that, hey, it was a lawsuit filed, and you know what I'm saying, a woman pretty much got her voucher. Matter of fact, two families got their vouchers back, so that set a precedent. Do you think that they calling these people saying, hey, you know, we took your voucher for this, and you know, we basically need to be giving it back? So when I tell you it is layers to this, it's layers to this. So it's not one phone call, it's 2, 3, 4, 5 segments, because I haven't even gotten on the business end of it yet about Black businesses that's suffering up under Chicago Housing Authority because they putting them up on the contract and barely giving them one job a year when they contract is for a 2-year basis.
And see, these are the kind of conversations that we have to have. And a lot of times these things are happening under our noses and we don't know about them. You know, we spend so much of our time being reactionary. You know, we're always pedaling backwards. We're reacting to things that are happening because we're always finding out after the fact, which is why I'm so glad you're called. I'm so glad that we're able to have these kinds of conversations. And you're right, this is just the beginning because this is a really big topic. And one of the ways that we're even maintaining Blacks in the community right now is because of those vouchers. And if our people lose those vouchers, where are they going to go? And that's why we're talking about homelessness. We can't not talk about it. We can't not talk about the plight of the Black man and woman here in this city without talking about housing and the fact that we don't have, there's not a lot of affordable housing in the city right now for Black people, and the Black people who have it are steady losing it over BS. And people don't know that if they got those PPP loans, that they can go back and that they can apply and have those restraints taken off of them. So certainly those are conversations that we have to have.
You know, this is the truth. They pretty much are using the undereducation of our people against us, number one. Number two, but they also, it's supposed to be different mechanisms in place, but they all think that all we want to talk about is social service. No, we want to talk about the economic end, because there's two different types of social service. One that's benevolent and just giving you free stuff, and there's another type that they dump money into, but we don't see that type coming in our community where they're pretty much showing you how to start businesses and showing you, you know what I'm saying, where you can go get funding for. They pretty much help your business grow. They don't give us that, or pretty much showing you how to, if it ain't the home ownership program, that they pretty much, you know, they tether you still to your voucher. But we see them giving the illegal immigrants, you know what I'm saying, home ownership that only been here 2 years. and they done showed them how to create LLCs and pretty much put them in their name, and now they living in them homes. So it's a lot to unpack.
It really is. And even with that situation with the migrant family, and I'm sure that there's other migrant families and not just the one that is approximately 17 steps from my house, literally right around the corner. And when you think about the fact that these people have been here for 2 years, don't have social security numbers, but are able to get bank loans. You and I can't even fill out an application without a social security number. And we were born here and apply for a loan after 2 years. They've been here 2 years. What kind of credit do they have? You understand what I'm saying? And these are.
Stop, just hold that thought right there, because I said the same thing, not meaning to cut you off. You mean what kind of business credit that you have created and garnered in 2 years since they created an LLC for them that was able to get them $100 and whatever $1,000 loan. So we need to pretty much have that dissected on how it was actually done.
I think you're right, and I think that we do need to and examine that, because here's the thing. Again, we have people who have been working 30, 40 years who have not realized the American dream. And in this city, it's okay to have newcomers to come in and to be able to take full advantage of opportunities that our people have worked their whole lives, and some of them still don't have, and get denied and get denied and get denied and see, speak that and get denied. I mean, it goes as far as when they commit crimes and get arrested. You let me or you do something and get arrested. We going to spend the night, okay? They go home.
The police is showing up in court for us.
Yeah.
But they're not showing up in court for them.
Well, they're told not to. Wait, let's.
And trust me, I thought for Chicago PD, they told me exactly that.
Yeah, they're told not to. And so my thing is, how in the world is this fair? And here's the thing that we have to start thinking about. For all those who are realizing the American dream, there are going to be a large number that are not. And let me ask you this, and listen to me, Black Chicago, hear me. What's going to happen when the money runs out and they ain't got no place to go and they don't have homes to stay in and they're not rolling out the red carpets and filling up hotels on Cicero Avenue? What happens then? Where y'all think they gonna go? See, they put them in our neighborhoods for a reason. And if anybody want to challenge what I'm saying, show me some proof. Show me some proof. Because see, when the S hits the fan and that money runs out and those people become desperate, who do you think is going to become the target? I'm just talking about what I'm talking about. Y'all better start paying attention. You better start paying attention. See, we got people walking around saying, oh, you know what? It's okay. I see them. It doesn't affect me. I don't care. They're in their silo and I'm in mine. Right now, they're in their silo and you in yours. But when their silo is no longer able to provide, your silo will become their silo. Believe that. Believe that. Thank you, Sister Tamiko, for calling in. But yeah, people, I'm look, listen. We could keep walking around with blinders on if we want to, pretending like this ain't gonna affect us. Pretending like what happened in Colorado ain't gonna happen to us. Pretending like they can't come and take over buildings here. Because see, what we have to remember is that we still killing each other in the street. Who gonna be around the fight when it's time to fight? If all our Black men and boys are out here offing each other. Come on, people. Come on. I need y'all paying attention. I need us watching, looking, and praying. Definitely praying. Because this situation we in, it ain't for the weak. It ain't for the weak, people. It ain't for the weak. So we're going to have to start paying attention. We're going to have to strap up our boots, protect our neighborhoods, protect our people, and protect our property. And let me just say something else to Black people. You know how you have those people in your family that walk around and they say, I got mine, you got to get yours. Hey, it's time for us to lose that attitude. It's going to start within families. We got to come together as family. Because when we got to stand up, that's how we're going to have to stand. We're going to have to stand as families. We got to have to come together as a family and fight for what is ours. Fight for our communities. Fight for our businesses. Heck, fight to keep our properties. Y'all heard what that lady just said about what's happening? About our people showing up and building court? About them coming out putting violations on our properties? Y'all know grandma and grandpa ain't necessarily got that kind of money. It's time for us to start. We're going to have to pull our money together and save the properties that our people and our families have. Ain't no more of that looking out for yourself. We got to look out for each other. Hear me, people, when I say this ain't a me problem and it ain't a they problem, it's a us problem. And it's going to take all of us to solve it. So, I want to just say to our elected officials, I know y'all think we ain't watching, but we're watching. And we're not quiet anymore. We're talking about it. And as the weeks progress, and I'm on this show week after week, Brother Tyrone and I are going to be bringing the issues. We're going to be talking about what's happening in the city of Chicago. We're going to be talking about what's happening here in America and how it affects us. We're going to be talking about it. And y'all better start paying attention and listen to this. Y'all got to start talking to the brothers. The brothers matter. Sisters, we got to do more to lift them up. But brothers, y'all got to lift each other up. If your brother out there struggling, right now you struggling too. Because it takes a village. We are the village. The cavalry ain't coming. It's up to us. I'm here to take your calls. This is Intellectual Radio. And it is time for us now to close out. But I thank you for taking the time to listen in. Brother Tyrone and I will be back on Tuesday. This is Intellectual Radio. ExCons4Trump. Thank you so much for tuning in.